Hi, Timothy Unkert from unkertmedia.com here. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my beginner Java tutorial. So first off, I want to talk about the setup that I'm using and then give you some hints as to your setup because it does depend on your operating system. I am using a Chromebook with Linux installed, and the Java version that I'm using, so if we look this up, it's Java or Amazon Corretto 17 is what it's called. That's the Java version. And we can take a look at that. Let me boost this up for you here. Okay, so this .deb file here, let me just get that a little bit larger. So you can download this .deb file here and install it if you have Linux installed on your Chromebook. I'm using an AMD style Chromebook, so it works for that. So that's what I'm using. I will be using IntelliJ for most of this tutorial. You can use the IntelliJ community version. I have the professional version, that's a paid version, but the community version is free. So all you have to do is Google IntelliJ and go here and click on IntelliJ. First thing comes up. You're going to go to download, and you can download the community edition. Everything that I'll be doing in this tutorial, you'll be able to do on the community edition. So you want to make sure to install those things. You want to have Linux enabled if you're on a Chromebook. And if you're on a Chromebook, you want to download the tar.gz file, which I'm not seeing that here. Let's go to download. Try that again. Oh yeah, we have to switch over to Linux. So you're going to download here and do the tar.gz file. Now, if you're not wanting to use IntelliJ, you can also follow along on a text editor. For instance, if you want to do it in your terminal, we're going to go through in the terminal creating a Java program and actually compiling and running it just from the terminal. So I'm going to make a directory called Java_terminal. I'm going to cd into the Java_terminal, and I'm going to create a file with Vim. So you could use this from the command line, and I'm going to name it print hello. And you want to do uppercase for each word in Java, print hello.java. And so the file name, you want to match the class name. And so what I'm going to do now is I am going to say public, so public class, and then the name of the file, which was print hello, okay? And then within that, what we're going to type is public static void main, and then within parentheses, a capital string, open and close square brackets, space, args. And then we have a curly brace, and we're going to close this. So we're going to need this for each file. This kind of gets created a little bit easier if you're using an IDE, but you can, of course, do it in a text editor. And then for our first file, let's say we wanted to print our name. So all we would do is System.out.println, and then within parentheses and within double quotes, I could say something like, hello, my name is Tim, period. End the double quotes, close the parentheses, and we want to have a semicolon after each statement in Java. Now I could save this, and I could exit out of the file. And then if I list, you'll see I have this print hello.java. So I'm going to do Java C, and make sure you have Java installed, Java C, print hello.java, run that. Okay, it's going to take a moment. And now if I list out the storage, we see we have print hello.class. I can run this with Java and then just type print hello, and that's going to run the class. And you see, hello, my name is Tim. So that is a way to do it on the terminal, Or if you have a text editor and you have an embedded terminal, if you want to use VS Code, you could do that. That's free. You want to use Sublime Text, that's a commercial one that I've used on this channel. That also, you can install a terminal and run it from there. So there shouldn't be anything too complex with this tutorial. It is a beginner tutorial, but we're going to go through a lot of the syntax and talk about a lot of different things in Java. So let's get started. I'm going to close the terminal and close this out. And let's get rid of this stuff. And probably don't need that. And let's open IntelliJ here. And now this is IntelliJ. I am going to go into presentation mode. So it's nice and large for you. So I will enter presentation mode here. And so now you'll see my syntax nice and large. Okay. One thing I did want to talk about, let me see how this markdown file comes out. So I want to talk first off a little bit about the syntax. So I'm going to go here and let's extend this. Oops. Don't need any of this stuff. Close this folder. So in Java Lessons, I'm actually going to create a file. It's just going to be a regular file. I'm going to call this 001 underscore. What did I call this? I called this Java syntax.markdown. Okay. All right. So we're going to create that, and I'm going to close out the side here. And what will happen here is when I'm typing, I'll type the markdown here, and you'll see a nice preview on the side here. So first off, we want to start with just making a heading, Java syntax. Let me see if I can spell Java syntax. That's what we're talking about. So like I mentioned, every Java program has a class name that must match the file name. Okay. Inside every program, we have a main method. So, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Don't want a cookie here. Okay. And so we'll have something like the public static void main string. The string args is if you're running it from the command line, you could enter arguments while you're running the program. And then we have some code to be executed. So it's giving me a little red thing on the side here, but if you see here, this is the general main method. Let me just make a note down here that this is our main method. Okay. All right. We can also say that, pull this up a little bit. I can't pull it up. Curly braces surround the code to be executed. Okay. And if you want to print something, to print, you can use, one of the things you can use is System.out.println, and then open and close parentheses and a string to be outputted that is in double parentheses. So a string to be outputted to the console. Okay, and then you must end it with a semicolon. Okay, all right. Okay, again, the string must be wrapped in double quotation marks. In terms of comments, you can make a single line comment with the 2 forward slashes. Okay, so the 2 forward slashes, and then you have a comment. And then to make a multi-line comment, I'm not sure why this, yeah, there we go. Let's pull it up. To make a multi-line comment, you can use a forward slash and an asterisk, and then you can close it with another forward slash and an asterisk. Okay, so that's a multi-line comment. Okay, so I just wanted to go through a little bit of that right now. But what I want to do is I want to go back and we're going to start to create some Java files. So we talked about printing hello to the screen. I want to talk about now creating variables. Okay. So I'm going to create a file in this source folder. This is how we would do it on the IDE. And it's going to be a Java class. And the file is going to be variables, data, types, and .java. Now, this IDE will add the .java for me. Just remember to do that. Okay. All right. So let's close out the side here. And we want to create our main method. And IntelliJ has a nice shortcut where I can just type main and hit tab, and it's going to give me that main method. Okay. So now let's talk about some variables and data types. And I'm going to make a multi-line comment here. And I'm going to say you can create variables of different data types. So that's the first thing. Java is a statically typed language. That means you have to declare the data type. Languages like Python and JavaScript, which is much different than Java, are dynamically typed. Although with JavaScript, you do have TypeScript, and with Python, you can be more explicit. But those are dynamically typed languages, Ruby as well. Okay, so let's talk about some of the main data types. And we're going to cover those below. Okay, and when I'm looking at variable names, so the convention in Java is to name variables with camel case. Now I wrote camel case in camel case. Notice the first word is lowercase, but every word after starts with an uppercase. So that's the convention for naming variables. Obviously, you see with class names, you start with uppercase for every word. Okay, and variable names are sometimes called identifiers. So that's another word that is used. Okay, so let's create one. So I'm going to create a variable type string. I'm going to use camel case. So I'm going to say my name, and then I'm going to set my name, so Timothy Unger. I'm going to end this with a semicolon. So that's how I declare and initialize a variable. I can also create a variable of type integer. So I can say int my age and set that equal to an integer of 46. I can also create a variable that is a float that has decimal points to it. So let's call it float pi, and I do 3.14. Now with floats, I have to put an F and then the semicolon, okay, to declare a float. So let's make a comment. You must include the F for float, okay? I can also create a double, which is like a float with a bit more precision. And I do not need the F there. I can do, let's do pi 2, 3.1415. I can go more precise than this, but I just want to make a distinction between the two. I can create a character, which is going to be one letter. So let's say my grade. And I put the character instead of double quotes in single quotes. Okay, so let's say my grade is an A. I can also create a true false type variable, which is called a Boolean. And let's say is teacher, and we'll set that equal to true. Okay. And of course, we can print out the variables with System.out.println. Now, IntelliJ has a nice shortcut for that, which is just sout. And if I hit tab, it'll give me System.out.println. Then I can print out my variables. So let's print out my name. Let's do my age. Let's do pi. Let's do pi 2. Let's do my grade. And let's do the Boolean is teacher. Okay, so now I'm going to print these out. So let's print these out, see what we get. So right now you'll see that my program is building and compiling. The shortcut on a Chromebook is a shift search and then the button by the power button on the top row. So that's a quick way to run it. And then if we look up here, let me make this a little bit larger for you. But we can see we printed out my name, my age, pi2, my grade, and then is teacher. Okay. We can also declare and initialize multiple variables at once. So let me make a single line comment. We can declare and initialize multiple variables at once. Okay. So let's do int a equals 1, int b equals 2, int c equals 3. And we can do something a little different, which is System.out.printf. And then similar to printf in C, we can use format specifiers to print out our integers. So I can use a format specifier for an integer, which is a %d. Let me do 3 of those. And then after the closing double quote, I'll just list out the variables with commas separating each of the variables. So A, B, and C. So we can do that, okay? Now I'm going to compile and run this using my Shift F10 shortcut on IntelliJ to do so. And that will run the file. And I did something a little bit wrong, which I should have seen, but I don't actually need, once I'm declaring multiple integers, I don't actually need to type integer again, and that will actually mess up my program. So let's use Shift F10, our shortcut to run the program, if you're following along with IntelliJ. If not, use the other way that I showed you to start. So now we can see that our variables 1, 2, 3 are printed out on the same line below. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is make another comment. Here I'll make a multi-line comment this time, even though I'm going to only put one single line just to show you. Other data types include byte, bytes, shorts, and then of course we covered int. There's long, which stores larger numbers, float, double. We covered all these, Boolean, and char. So I probably shouldn't say that. I'll just say data types include. So these are most of the major ones, and that'll get you started with variables and data types in Java. The next thing I want to talk about is arithmetic. Okay, so let's go and talk about arithmetic in Java. So what I want to do now is I want to create a file, and I'm going to create it in the source folder, and I'm going to call it arithmetic.java. And with IntelliJ, all I have to do is type arithmetic, and it's going to create it for me. And let's close outside. It's going to end that file with the .java extension. I'm going to type the shortcut main and hit tab to get the main. And I'm going to start off by declaring and initializing 2 integers in the same statement. Okay, so I'm going to say int a equals 10, b equals 3, and I'm going to end that with a semicolon. Okay, so we'll start off with some simple arithmetic. We will add a and b, okay, and print it out. So let's do sysout, and we can hit tab and expand that to System.out.println. and we'll do a plus b. Okay, now I'm not going to run this just yet. Let's subtract a and b. So we'll do sysout and then a minus b, and see if you can figure out what these are. These might be fairly obvious, but we'll get to something interesting in a moment. So I'm going to multiply a and b. I'll do sout a times b, and then I'm going to divide a by b. Okay, so we'll do sout to get System.out.println, and we'll do a/b. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is do my Shift F10 to compile and run this program. And I want you to pay attention to the division especially. Okay, so we've got our addition, 10 plus 3 is 13. We've got our subtraction, 10 minus 3 is 7. Got our multiplication, 10 times 3 is 30. And then our division, we have 10 divided by 3 is 3. Now that's interesting because 10 divided by 3 is actually 3.3 repeating. So the decimal has been chopped off. But I want to show you something else with division. So I'm going to do it with numbers. So let's do sout. We'll do 10 divided by 3.0. Sout, do 10.0 divided by 3. And then sout for System.out.println, 10 divided by 3.0. Okay, now let's compile and run these, and we'll see if there's a difference. Okay, notice the last three quotients have 3.3 repeating. Okay, so if we want to get an accurate division, we need to have one of the numbers be a double or a float. Okay, otherwise it will be what we call integer division, where it just gives you the integer and chops off the decimal portion. Okay. Somewhat related to division is the modulo operator, and that returns the remainder of the division. So now I'm going to do sout to get System.out.println. I'll do a modulo b. Okay. And now if I do Shift F10 to run this, we notice that the last number we get is a 1, which is the remainder of 10 divided by 3. So the modulo operator gives you the remainder. Okay. I want to also talk about incrementing the number by 1. We'll first start with after the operation performed. So let's do sout, and we'll do a plus plus. And now if I run this, you'll see this is interesting. We still get 10. Interesting. But let's go here and increment the number before the operation. So the number by 1, and we'll do it before. Okay? And then we'll talk about why that is. So do plus plus a. Okay? So now, if I run this, I get 10, but then 12. So what's going on? Well, this is going to print out a as the value 10, and then it's going to add 1. So it's going to print out 10, but then a becomes 11. Okay? Now this one is going to add 1 to a, then print it out. So it goes from 11 to 12, and it prints it out. Okay, so that's a little difference with the increment operators. Let's also talk about the decrement operator. So let's decrement the number by 1. We'll do it after, and let's see if you can figure out, and to do that, we're going to do an a and then minus minus. Let's see if you can figure out what this is going to print out. So I'm going to run this. Did you figure out that we were going to get 12? If you did, you're correct. Now, let's decrement before. And again, see if you can figure out what this is going to print out. So decrement the number by 1 before. So we'll do dash dash A. Okay, and then let's run this. And did you guess 10? Okay, so what's happening here? So it's at 12 here. We covered that. But then we print out 12, and then we subtract 1. So it brings it to 11. Now for this one, we subtract 1. So it brings it down to 10, and then we print it out. So we get 10. Okay. All right, so that's arithmetic. Next thing I want to talk about is the math class. So let's keep on point. Where was that? Let me just find. I'm looking at my notes on GitHub here. The math class. I named it the math class. I was looking for that file. All right, so we're going to create a new file, and to go along with the GitHub repo, I'll name it the math class. And we'll close out the sidebar here. Okay, and we'll create our main method here. And we're going to use the math class to find the max and the min of two numbers. So let's find the max and the min of two numbers. Okay, so let's print these out too. So we'll do sout to get our System.out.println. And then to use the math class, we're going to type the name of the class, which is in uppercase, so math. That's included with Java. And we'll do a dot to get a method, okay? So let's find the max of two numbers. So we're going to do math.max. Then in parentheses, we can put two integers or two longs, floats, or doubles. Interesting that it gives us a choice here. This relates something to something later on we'll talk about which is method overloading, where you can have different methods with the same name that take in different data types. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. Okay. We can also print out the minimum of the two numbers. We can do math.max, not max, min 2 and 3. And again, we could do different data types. So let's run this just to show you that it works. So we should get 3 and then 2. And we get, as expected, 3 and 2. So we can do that with math. We can also do square roots. So let's do System.out.println. Let's do math.sqrt. Notice this takes in a double, but you can just put, say, a number. So let's put 9. It treats it like 9.0. We'll run it. You'll see we get a double 3.0, okay, for our result. Okay. You can also find the distance from 0 on the number line. This is also sometimes referred to as absolute value. So we can do System.out.println. We'll do math.abs, and let's pass in a negative number just to show you that this is 10 units away from 0 on the number line. It's going to give me just 10. Okay, and let's run this. And we get just 10. Cool. All right, we can do some trig. So let's do some trig. Yeah, so let's do an sout, and we'll do math.cos for cosine. And then we're going to do radians. So we're going to do math.pi in uppercase. That's going to give me the value. Look, it's giving me the value of pi. Okay, we'll do pi fourths. I'm going to duplicate this line, and I'm going to change this line to sine. And I duplicated that. The shortcut in IntelliJ that I'm using to duplicate that on a Chromebook is just Control-D. So if you want to duplicate a line, Control-D, okay? You can use Control-X to get rid of the line. All right, and then we'll do math.cos. We're going to do math.tan, okay? And we'll do the tangent of pi fourths. All right, let's run these right now. Let's see what we get. Okay, for those of you who aren't that familiar with trigonometry, just a short lesson here. Pi fourths is equal to 45 degrees, so that's pi fourths radians is 45 degrees. The cosine and sine of 45 degrees is square root of 2 over 2, which is its value approximated to 0.707, etc. Now, technically, the tangent of pi fourths is 1, but we're getting this 0.99999 because it's an estimation. There's some rounding going on. We're not getting the exact value, which is 1. But anyway, so that was a little bit of trig. Thank you for bearing with me for that. Okay, so now let's print out a random number between 0.0 and 0.99999, including both. Another way they say this is between 0.0 and 1, inclusive of the 0.0 and exclusive of the 1. All right, so a way we can do this is we can do our S out, and we'll do math.random. This is very similar to Java. Math.random is similar to JavaScript. Even though those are totally different languages, it is similar in that way. So this is going to print out a random number between 0 and 1. And if we want to have something different, like a random number between, say, 1 and 10, we can do a little bit different. We're going to have some typecasting. So I'm going to say, notice the typecasting here. And that's when you basically convert one type of variable into another type. So I'm going to do System.out.println. And I want to convert what I'm going to do next into an integer, okay? Because I want between 1 and 10 as an integer. And then within parentheses, let me get this pop-up out of the way. I'm going to do math.random and then multiply that by 11, okay? Yeah. All right, and we'll print this out. And we get 1, okay? So the time for the number between 1 and 10, we got 0.965, etc. Let's just run it again just to show you the last two numbers are random. So we get 0.035 and we get 6 here, okay? If this was 0.0, this whole thing would be 0. So what I might want to do is instead of this, I might want to then, I don't know, add 1 to this, something like that, okay? And do it that way, all right? But that's how we get a random number between a certain range using the math class. Okay, so I talked about math class. Let's check that off. Let's next talk a bit about string methods, okay? So I'm going to create another file here in my source file, and I'm going to call this string methods.java. Again, my IDE is adding that for me. And let's create our main method here. Okay, and I'm going to create a string called my name and set that equal to Timothy Unkert. And I'm going to put a semicolon at the end. And now what I want to do is print out the length of the string, okay? So I'm going to do S out, and I'm going to do my name dot, and then I can do length here, okay? So that's going to give me the length of the string. So let's run that to confirm. And we get 14, okay? So it's 14 characters. Cool, and that includes the space as well. All right, let's create another string. And I'm going to say this one is my website. And we'll set that equal to https://unkertmedia.com. You can obviously just type unkertmedia.com and get there if you want to. Check it out. And what I want to do with this one is I want to convert the string to uppercase. So let's convert the string to uppercase and print it out. Okay, so I'm going to do s-out to get System.out.println, and we'll do my website dot to uppercase. Okay, and notice how I can arrow down to get those different methods. Now this is going to print it in uppercase, but notice it's not going to change it. So it will not change it permanently. Hopefully I'm spelling that right. Yeah. So if I just print out my website, again, you're going to see it's written normally. So you'll see it in uppercase and then it's written normally. And so we see it in uppercase and then we see it normally. And the cool thing about this IDE is I could click on a link. So I'm just showing you something about IntelliJ. I can click on a link and it will go to the website, which is loading slowly when I'm recording, and I have a slow internet connection. But you notice here, I have post, might want to check it out. And that was a shameless plug. Okay, anyways, let's close that out. All right, so we can also capitalize the string. So we could do two lowercase, but we can capitalize. Now, some languages have a method capitalize. We have to do it a little bit differently in Java. So we can capitalize. Hopefully I can spell. We can capitalize, although I'm going to say this is a little verbose in Java. So to do that, we want to print it out. So we're going to do System.out.println. I'm going to say my website dot substring, and I'm going to go from 0, start 0, end at 1, to uppercase, plus, now we're going to concatenate on. So we're just doing the substring of the first letter. We're going to concatenate the rest of the string. We'll do my website dot substring, and we'll start at index 1. And then we'll end this, the semicolon here. So we've concatenated these together. Now let me run the program. It's a long line. And so we get this first H is capitalized. So if we wanted to capitalize the first letter of a string, we could do it in that method. Again, it's a bit verbose in Java. And this plus here is what we call string concatenation. Okay, so that you may hear string concatenation. What is that? Well, now you know. Okay, we can also print the character at a certain index. So let's say I want to do a certain index. Let's do index 5. So what I can do here is I can do s-out. I can do my website dot, and it's just going to be character at index 5. That's going to print the character at index 5, which I believe is the colon after the HTTPS. Let's see if I'm right on that one. And I am. Okay, cool. So it's a colon here is the last thing it printed out. Pretty nice. Okay, we can also use, instead of the plus sign, we can concatenate without the plus sign. So we could concatenate one string to another. So I could do, and let's print this out. I'm going to say my website dot concat, and then I'm going to concatenate on this string is a great website. Not that I'm biased or anything. Now let's run this. And we see unkertmedia.com is a great website. And, you know, it's pretty good. It's all right. But anyway, so We can do that. We could also, again, concatenate with the plus sign. So we can concatenate with the plus sign. And to do that, we'll do something like my website, and then the plus is an awesome website. Might be getting a little carried away. Okay, so, and if I run this just to prove that it works, and similar to the concatenation we did above with the substrings, we get uncritmedia.com is an awesome website. Okay, I might be biased. Again, it's okay, but that's string methods. That's some of them. There's many. You notice when I type a string, if I go here and put a dot, you see all these methods pop up. So you can, start looking at a lot of these methods and see, okay, what's this one? Index of, let's do, just do the colon. Maybe we do it in single quotes. Okay. Now, if I run it, we get 5 is an awesome website because the colon was at character, or the character colon was at index 5. Okay. So lots of methods to explore. Again, if you use the free version of IntelliJ, it's one of the IDEs. There's other ones like Eclipse or NetBeans or something. They will also have methods that you can see. Okay, so that was string methods. Now I want to create a new file. And this is related to strings, and I want to call this escape characters. So we're going to create a new Java class. I'm going to call that escape characters. Okay, and we'll close that out. And let's take a look at escape characters. Okay, so, all right, so let's do our main method here. And let's use some escape characters to format our text that's outputted to the console. So I'm going to do a System.out.println, and I'm going to say this is line 1, and then we can use this \n as an escape character to create a new, and this is what we call a new line character. So this is line 1. Now I can type this is line 2. Notice I don't need any space between it. Now if I run this, let's see what we get. So I get this is line 1, this is line 2. Cool. All right. We can also tab over text. So let's do that. So we'll do a /t, a \t here, and say this text is tabbed over. Let's again run this. And we see this text is tabbed over. Nice. Okay, let's do a few other things. We can add double quotes. So we can say, let's do a System.out.println. We'll say this text has, and we'll do a \, double quote. And then I'm going to type double quotes and then another \, double quotes in it. Okay. And if I run this, I'm going to get this text has double quotes in it. Now, similarly, I'm going to do a Control-D to duplicate that line. I'm going to delete this and go single. And I'm going to change these to single quotes here. And now I'm going to run this again. And we see that this text has single quotes in it. Finally, the other one I want to show you is a \. So I can say this text has a \, and I'm just going to use 2 backslashes and say in it, something like that. Now when I run it, we're going to get the 1 \, because the first one is the escape character. So we get this text has a \ in it with the \ right here. Okay, so that's escape characters. Talked about math class. I want to talk next about conditionals. Okay, so we're going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this conditionals. And let's close out the side here. And I'm going to create my main method. And I'm going to create a Boolean. So I'm going to say Boolean is teacher equals true. And now let's have a conditional. So I'm going to say if is teacher. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print something. Tim is a teacher. And I can also have an else for if this condition doesn't work. You don't have to, but you can. And I'm going to do something like Tim is not a teacher. Okay. And it's giving me a warning because this condition is always true, but sometimes you might have some person enter a variable in there, and then, we judge based off the variable if you're a teacher or not. Okay. So, this is just telling me that it's always going to print Tim as a teacher. Okay. So let's run this. Tim is a teacher. Okay. Now we could go up here and let's try this. And if we run it, we get Tim is not a teacher. So what did I just do there? Well, I added this exclamation, which is like the bang symbol, sometimes they call it. But this means not. So if this is not true, then this will run. But since it is true, this is going to run. Okay. So let's create a couple more Booleans here. So we'll do a Boolean is programmer equals true, and a Boolean is doctor equals false. Okay. And now I'm going to have an if, else statement. You can include as many else ifs as you want. So let's do it. If is doctor, which is false, so we're not going to get this to run. We'll print Tim is a doctor. Then we can do an else if, and then I'm going to do is doctor and is programmer. So the and is this double ampersand. So the first part is false. So since these both have to be true, the whole thing is going to be false. So this will not run also. So we'll do it. But if it did run, we'd print Tim is a doctor and a programmer. Okay. And then we'll do an else if, and we'll do, let's do is doctor, and then we'll do 2 pipes here, is programmer. Okay. And I'll tell you what that is in a moment. And then we'll print, I'm going to give it away. Tim is either a doctor or a programmer. And if I highlight this, we see that this condition is always true because only one of them has to be true, and is programmer is true. And then we could do another else here, and we could do something like, we could print out Tim is a teacher. Okay, so now let's run this. We'll see what we get. Okay, so we get Tim is not a teacher because I had that exclamation in front of it. So, and then it says Tim is either a doctor or a programmer. Okay, so the or statement was true. The and statement was false. Okay, so that's a little bit about conditionals. We can also create something called a ternary operator. So I'm going to create another file here. A new Java class. We're going to call that ternary. And I'm going to create a main method here. All right. And then within the ternary, we're going to have a Boolean. Let's just have is teacher and set that equal to true. And then we'll create a string, and I'm going to call that job description. And I'm going to set an equal sign here. And then in parentheses, I'm going to set some condition. And the condition I'm going to set is going to be is teacher. So that will be true. And if it is true, the job description is going to equal what's after the question mark. So I'm going to say Tim is a teacher. And then I'm going to do a colon. And if it was false, it would execute what's after the colon. So I could say Tim is not a teacher. And make sure to put a semicolon at the end here. Okay. And then what we can do now is we can print the job description. So let's just print the job description and let's run it. Okay, so we get Tim is a teacher. Now, if I did something here, like put an exclamation in front, okay, now if I run this, we see since this is meaning not, if this is not true, so if it was not true, it would say Tim is not a teacher, okay? So that is a ternary operator. Let's keep talking about control flow. So let's talk about switch case. So we'll create another file, new Java class. I'm going to call this switch case. And we'll go here. Go down to here. Okay. And I think I called this, I'm actually going to change it. I think I called it switch statements. So let me rename this, and we can rename it. We can go here, rename. We can rename the file, or if we rename it, we'll rename the class. And before I do that, actually, let me show you. So you see it creates this public class switch case. We have switch case as the name of the file. Now, if I go to refactor and just rename the file, it's just going to change the file name. But if I go to rename here, and I change it to switch statements and hit refactor, look at that. It changes the name of the file to switch statements and also the class name to switch statements. So you want to do that if you're renaming the file. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, so let's create our main method. And get rid of the side here. Okay, and I'm going to create an integer called day and set it equal to 4. And I'm going to switch my control flow based off of the day. So I put switch, then parentheses day, and then I have a bunch of cases. Okay, so I have case 1. And if it's case 1, let's just print today is Monday. After each of these, I want to break. I'll show you what happens if we don't break. Let's do case 2, and we'll do today is Tuesday, and that's something I'm alluding to that's called a fall through. I should have periods at the end of these for proper punctuation because technically those are sentences. Anyway, so I'm going to break here. I'll do case 3. Okay, today is Wednesday, and then we'll break. break, do case 4. Today is Thursday. And then we'll break, we'll do case 5. Today is Friday. And we'll do case 6. Today is Saturday. Break, we'll do case 7. Today is Sunday. We'll break. And then a lot of times we have a default, and we might do something like, I don't know what day it is, something like that. And just, we could do that also. For an escape character, although we probably don't need it because we have double quotes surrounding. But anyways, and a lot of times after the default, you don't include the break. Now this is showing that since day is set to 4, it's always going to be today is Thursday. Let's not include the break for this one. Let's just get rid of it. And let's run it. Okay. So you see, today is Thursday, today is Friday, because we didn't include the break, so it fell through to the next case. Now, if I was talking about Ruby, it doesn't have fall throughs in their case, but Java does. So we have to include the break if we want it just to do case 4. There are certain times where you might want to have it fall through, so keep that in the back of your mind in case you do. And if I run this, we're going to get today is Thursday, okay? And let's change this to 27, right? And run it. And we'll see here, we get the default. I don't know what day it is, all right? So we typically have a default, and we have all these warnings that's just going to ignore all these and go down to the default. But that's the IDE doing that for me. Okay, so talked about switch case. Start talking about loops. So let's go here and let's create a new Java class. I'm going to call this while loops. That's the name of my class because we'll be talking about while loops. Okay, so let's go and create that. And let's create our main. And in our main, I'm going to have some kind of index variable. I'm going to call it I. So I'm going to say int I equals 1. And I'm going to do fizzbuzz. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but let's do fizzbuzz. And if you've been watching my channel, you might be thinking, not again. Oh, man, are you serious? But we're going to do it. So I'm going to say while I is less than 101. And if you don't know what the fizzbuzz challenge is, stay tuned. I'll show you. All right. So, and then we're going to, if I is divisible by 3 and 5, we're going to print fizzbuzz. So if I is divisible by 3, we're going to use our modulo because if there is no remainder, or the remainder is 0, that's divisible by 3. And then we're going to use this and I modulo 5 equals 0. So it's divisible by 3 and 5. We are going to print fizzbuzz. And we'll say else if it's only divisible by 3, okay, then we'll print fizz, okay? And we'll also do another else if I is only divisible by 5, then we're going to print buzz, okay? And then we'll also do, if it's none of those conditions, we're just going to print the letter I, okay? Now, at the end of this while loop, before we get out of the while loop, we have to make sure to increment I by 1. So I'm going to do I++ to increment it after we run to here. So it's going to increment it, but next time it'll be incremented by getting up here, and then we'll not be in what they call an infinite loop. If we didn't have this, we would get caught in an infinite loop, and we would have to break out of it. Okay, so let's run this. And okay, and we get 1, 2, fizz, 4, buzz, fizz, 7, 8, fizz, buzz, 11, fizz, 13, 14, fizz, buzz, so on. Okay, so we completed the challenge. I think what I should show you is the infinite loop. So let's just delete this. And now let's run it and show you what happens and how to break out. Okay. So we're running and we're just printing 1. And we're still just printing 1. So I can hit the stop button here. And we interrupted the infinite loop. But we do want the I++ here. Now, if you were running this in the terminal and you wanted to break out of it, you can use Control-C to break out of the loop. So no worries if you get in one, just know how to break out. It's not the end of the world. It'll happen to every one of us. Okay, so that's while loops. Let's talk now about for loops. For loops, a little bit harder to get into an infinite loop, but it is possible. So let's create a for loop. So I'm going to create a new Java class. I'm going to call this for loops. And I'll close this out. And I'm going to create our main method. And let's do fizz buzz in a for loop. Yay! All right, so we're going to do for, and then we're going to have the index variable. So we'll say int I equals 1. Then we have a semicolon. Then we have the condition that the loop runs. Well, so we're going to say I is less than 101. And then we have how much we increment I through the loop. So I'm just going to do I++ because I want to increment it 1 time each through. I could set this something like I equals I plus 2, or I could do I plus equals 4, something like that. So you don't have to increment by 1, but for this case, I'm going to increment by 1. So I'm going to say if I modulo 3 equals 0, so if it's divisible by 3 and it's divisible by 5, again, we're going to print fizzbuzz. And we'll do an else if. And we could do I modulo 5. This time doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure to have this condition first, because if it's divisible by 3 and by 5, it's going to be just divisible by 5 and just divisible, or it's going to be divisible by 5 and divisible by 3. So if we had this condition first, it would actually catch these as well. Okay, so we have to have this dual condition first and then the other single conditions. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so we're going to print buzz if it's divisible by 5. If it's divisible by 3, we'll print fizz. And then we do have to have this last condition where we just print the number if it meets none of the other conditions. Okay, so this is our for loop. Let's run. So we'll build and run it. And we get our fizz buzz. Okay. Now, I said it was harder to get in an infinite loop with a for loop, but let's just say I did something like this, okay, and then ran it. Look at that. I'm just getting 1 because I'm not incrementing it. So I'm in an infinite loop here. So let's stop that. Okay. Another way we could get in an infinite loop is if we just made this condition I equals I, something like that. Then I'm not incrementing it as well. So let's just test that out. And look at that. Ooh, we're in an infinite loop again. All right, let's stop that. Okay. Now I want this to be I++, so I'm just going to change it back. But you can get an infinite loop with the for loop, but it's kind of harder to remember because you have to have these three things in a for loop. So it makes it a little bit easier to stay out of the infinite loop. Okay, I also want to talk, while talking about looping, I'm going to create a file called break continue where we talk about break and continue in loops. So let's call this break continue. Okay, let's close this out. All right, and we'll create our main method here. And let's see, what did I want to do in this file? Taking a look at my notes. And let's say I want to print 1 through 7, but I have a for loop where I have int I equals 1. I is less than 100, and we increment by 1 each time through the loop. I can still only print 1 through 7. The way I can do it, I can do a System.out.println where I'm printing I. Now, normally this would print 1 through 99, right? Because it goes all the way up till it's 100, but then breaks the loop. But we can use a keyword break. So I can say if I double equals 7, and I don't have to put curly braces if I'm just doing one condition under the if statement. So I could just do break here. And this is going to break out of the loop if I equals 7. So let's run this. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nice. Okay. Now I could also do something. Let me create a little separator here. So I'm going to do a System.out.println and just do a string with a bunch of pluses to show you the separation just for a visual. And let's create another loop. And I'm going to print 1 through 10, skipping 7. So let's print 1 through 10 and skip 7. Okay, so I'm going to say for int I equals 1. I is less than or equal to 10. Oh, by the way, as I'm doing this, notice this I and this I, they are different. They are only scoped to the for loop that they are declared in. So this I is not available outside of this for loop, as is, this I isn't either. It's only scoped to the for loop, okay? Anyway, so I'm going to increment I by 1 through the loop, and then I'm going to say if I double equals 7, I'm going to say just one condition, continue, okay? And so what that's going to do, it's going to, when I is 7, it's just going to jump back up to the next thing in the loop and increment up. Okay, after this, I'm going to print I, okay? So this is going to cause it, once it's 7, it's going to go down, it's going to try and get down to here, but it's not going to, it's going to say, nope, you have to continue up here, then it goes to 8, and then it comes down here, okay? To demonstrate that, let's run this program. And we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Okay. All right. And so that's break and continue. Let's talk about user input next. I want to fit that in. So I'm going to create a new file here. Let's call it user input. And close that out. And for user input, well, let's create our main method. But we're going to need to go up above this class, and we're going to have to import in a package in Java that allows us to use, it brings in extra additional classes. So what I'm going to say is import java.util.scanner. Okay, I put a semicolon after the end of that. So that's going to allow me to bring in some extra code. So I do need that. Now, let me show you a trick with IntelliJ here. So let's delete that import statement and go here. And then I'm going to say, I want from the scanner class, I want to create a new object of the class. This is the terminology I'm using. And notice it's in red. It's saying, scanner scan, I'm going to call it scan, equals new scanner, and then in parentheses, system.in. This is what we need to do to take in new stuff. Now, if I hover over this, it says cannot resolve symbol scanner, import class, Alt-Shift-Enter, or I could just click on it. If I click on it or hit Alt-Shift-Enter, it brings in this scanner class that we need to use. So that's a little IntelliJ trick for you. All right, so we go down here. Now I'm going to create a string, and I'm just going to declare it. So I'm going to say string your name, okay? And then I'm going to do a System.out.println, what is your name? And then I'm going to say your name. So now we're setting it equal to something. So we're going to say your name equals this scan object that we created, the instance of the scanner class, dot, we're going to use this method nextLine, which is a method available to the scanner class. Okay, and now that's going to allow the user to enter input, and then we can say something like, we could do a System.out.println, do some concatenation, say your name is plus your name, and just put an exclamation at the end, right? Another little string. Let's try this program. Let's run it. Shift F10 to run. So we see, what is your name? I'm going to say Tim. I'm going to hit enter, and you see your name is Tim. Okay. We can also scan in integers. So we could do something like declare an integer. So integer age. And actually, let's first do a System.out.println, say, what is your age? Okay. And let's declare and initialize an integer variable. So we say int age equals scan dot, and we'll use this method next int. Okay, and you'll see the ID picked up that we should be using next int because we've declared this as an integer. So it was smart enough to pick that up. Okay, and then what we'll do here is we'll do a System.out.println and say your age is, and we'll do, this really isn't probably necessary, but we'll do integer to string, and then put in age, and then plus an exclamation point. So, yeah. Okay, and let's now run this. Okay. So what is your name? Tim. What is your age? 46. Your age is 46. Okay, so that's some user input for you. Next thing I want to cover is a date package. So I figure I'll include that in here. So if you're looking at dates, so let's just create a new file. Let me see, what did I call this in the GitHub repo? I called it date package. Okay. So we'll do a date package. Okay. Let's close out the side here. Create a main method. And I'm going to want to actually import two classes here. So I'm going to import java.util.localDate, and oh no, not util, .time, .localDate. That's what I wanted. I also want to import java.time.format date time formatter. There. Okay. So I'm going to be using these. I'm going to create a variable, which is an instance of the local date. So I'm going to say local date, create this variable, let's call it today, equals local date dot now for the method. And now I can print out a lot of different things. So first off, let's just print out today and see what we get. So we get November 24th, 2022. Now I'm posting this video. It's going up in beginning of December, but I recorded it beforehand. Wow. Pretty cool, huh? Preparation. All right, let's do some other methods of the instance today. So we'll do today dot, and let's do get day of month. Okay, and let's do today dot get month value, and let's do today dot get year. So these are all methods. Notice the parentheses, they're methods. Okay, so let's run this. And we get the day, the 24th, the month, the 11th, and the year, 2022. Pretty cool. All right. We can also get the date at the time. So I want to do System.out.println. We'll do today dot at time. And I'm going to do, let's see, 9, and then the minutes, 19. Okay. And now we'll run this. I think I could enter the seconds as well, but it's not that interesting. And we see that it's formatted this way. We have 2022, the 24th, and then 2/9/19. Okay, we can also print out the date in different formats. So I'm going to do System.out.println. We'll do today.format date time. That's why I brought in that other code. Date time formatter dot ISO date. Okay. And we can duplicate this and get a few different ones. So I'm going to do Control D, and I'm going to get rid of this ISO date. Let's do ISO ordinal date here, and let's do ISO underscore week date. There's a whole bunch of these you can explore. And let's run it. Let's see what the last 3 give us. So the ISO date just gives us 2024/11/24, which is like the original. The ISO ordinal date gives us 2022/3/28. And then the ISO week date gives us 2022 week 47-4. Okay. So that's pretty cool with the date package. Okay. So we're going to talk about arrays. All right. So let's create a new file. I'm going to call this Java class arrays. Okay. Let's get rid of the side. Create our main method. And I'm going to create an array of numbers. And the way I do that is I want it to be type integer. So I'm going to type the type, and then I'm going to put an open and close square bracket, and then the identifier of my array. So I'm going to call it my nums. And then within curly braces, I'll put the array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and put a semicolon there. And I'm going to iterate through an array with a for each loop. Okay, and it's a little different. So I'm going to say for int I colon my nums. So it's going to go through, I is going to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just print that out. And to show you, let's run it. Okay, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like strings with arrays, you can print out an array at a certain index. So let's print out the first item of the array. So I'm going to do System.out.println. We'll do my nums at index 0. So we put that in square brackets like that. If I run it, I should get 1 at the end. We always start index 0 for Java and many other programming languages. So we get 1. Now let's print out the last item in the array. Now some languages you can use -1 as your index. Can't do that in Java. What we'll do is do the my nums, and then we can use this dot length to get the length of the nums array, and we'll take 1 away from it because, again, we start at index 0. So this should give me 5. Let's run it. And we get 5. Very nice. All right, so that's arrays. So now I want to talk about bringing in some extra code for an array list. And an array list is important because you can change the size of the array with an array list. So let's create a new file. I'm going to call this array list package. Okay, and let's close out the side here. And I'm going to create my main method. I want to go up here and import java.util.array_list, like that. Okay, now with an array list, you're going to give a type. And remember, this array can be resized. Okay, so let's create an array list. So I'm going to do array list, and it's going to be a type string. I'm going to call it names. I'm going to set it equal to new array list, and it's going to be a new array list of type string, and we'll have a semicolon to end that statement. And now I can add names to the array list. So I can do names.add. I can add Tim. I can add Sarah. I can add Billy. And now let's just print out our array list names. Okay, let's print it out. And we get the array Tim, Sarah, Billy. Okay. Now, if we want to access the first item in the array list, what we can do is we can do, I want to print it out. I'm going to do names.get and then 0 for index 1. And if we want to print out the last item, so print out the last item in an array list, what I can do is I'll do my System.out.println. I'll do names.get, and then I'm going to find the length. So I'm going to do names, and we're going to use this method .size, and subtract 1 from it because we start at index 0. So let's run this. And we get the first name Tim and the last name Billy. Okay. Because we can resize this, we can remove a name in the list, and we remove it by index. So remove an item. I'm going to remove the first item. I'm going to do names.remove, and we'll just do 0 for index 0. And then let's now print out or print the size after the removal. It should be 3 before. It's going to be 2 after. So we'll do System.out.println names.size. Okay. Now let's run this. And we get 2 because we removed the name Tim. Now I could change a name in the names array list. And to do that, what I can do is names.set. I'm going to put the index that I want to change. So Billy is now at index 1 because we have 0 is Sarah. Billy is index 1. Let's change Billy back to, let's change it to Timmy so that we know that we're changing because we had Tim before. Okay, now let's print the names and we'll do System.out.println and we'll do names. Okay, let's run it. And we get Sarah and Timmy. Okay, so we took out Tim, then we had Sarah and Billy. We changed Billy to Timmy. Cool. All right, so that's array list. Next up, let's talk about linked list. All right, so I'm going to create a new file here. It's going to be called, what did I call it? Linked list package. All right, so it's called linked list package. Okay, and we'll close this out. And I'm going to create the main method. And I'm going to go up here and import. So import java.util.linkedList. Okay. Now, a linked list is more efficient with removing and adding first and last items in a list than an array list. So that might be when you want to use it. Other times you might want to use the array list. To create a linked list, let's do a linked list. We'll do the type string. I'm going to do names again. Names equals new linked list. We'll do string and do quotation on the end there. And I'm going to say names.add. We'll do Tim. And let's duplicate this. And we'll do Sarah and Sean. And let's just print these out to start. So we'll print out names. Cool. All right, so Shift F10 to run this. And we messed up somewhere. We forgot on our import statement, we forgot the semicolon. And by we, I mean I messed up. Not you. You probably caught that, right? Hopefully. And we get Tim, Sarah, Sean. Okay, cool. Now, like I said, we can add first and last names more efficiently than an array list. So let's do that. Let's demonstrate. And these aren't the only methods that are available, but let's do add first, and we'll do Joe, and then we'll do names.add last, Aaron, and now let's print out the names. Now this isn't necessarily going to be something that you would notice short tutorial like this, but when you're making a much bigger program working for a bigger company, these kind of efficiency considerations are things you should take into consideration. So if we print out the names, we see that Joe is now first, Aaron is last. Cool. All right, so that was the linked list. Next thing I want to talk about is the hash map. So I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call this hash map package. Okay. And now I'm going to create a main method here. We also have to import some code in. So I'm going to import java.util.hashmap. Okay, put a semicolon after that. Don't forget it this time. And a hash map has key value pairs. So it's kind of like a dictionary in Python or hashes in Ruby. A lot of languages have this concept. Okay, so to create a hash map, I'll say hash map. You notice it's even giving me, hey, what type is your key? What type is your value? You have to specify the type of the key and the value. So I'm going to do string. Both are going to be strings. Okay, and we'll see we'll give the identifier to the hash map, my ski areas. And it'll be a new hash map, again, of type, the key is going to be of type string, and the value is going to be of type string. We want to put a semicolon at the end of that as well. All right, and to add items to the hash map, we're going to use put. So I'm going to say my ski areas.put, and we'll do Vail, Colorado. Oh yeah. My ski areas.put, we'll do Keystone, Colorado. We'll do my ski areas.put, Aspen, Colorado. I've actually only skied at Highlands, but that's part of Aspen. It's part of Greater Aspen. We'll do Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm going to do my ski areas.put. We'll do Killington, Vermont. My ski areas.put. We'll do Beaver Creek, Colorado. And then we'll do my ski areas.put. I'm going to put Okemo, Vermont. But you'll see I'll remove one from the list later, or from the hash map later on. All right, so let's now print this out. So we'll do System.out.println, my ski areas. And now they're all great ski areas right there. Let's run this, and we see that we've got our hash map, Okemo. The key is Okemo. The value is Vermont. So on and so forth. Key is Aspen, value is Colorado. Okay, so that's how a hash map looks. We can also find the size of it. And let's print that out. We'll do my ski areas.size. And let's run that. And we see that I have 7 items in my hash map. And we can also get the value. So I'm going to do System.out.println, my ski areas.get, and then we'll get the key, do Killington. And if I run that now, we get the value of Vermont, because Killington's in Vermont. But that is the value in this hash map. We can remove items. Let's say I wanted to remove Okemo. We'll do my ski areas.remove. chemo, although I believe chemo is on the Epic Pass now. So since I have an Epic Pass, I could ski Okemo if I'm back in Vermont at some point. So we're going to remove Okemo. Now let's print out my ski areas, and we'll see that Okemo is no longer there. Okay, so we've got Breckenridge, Beaver Creek, Keystone, Vale, Aspen, and Killington, but no Okemo. Okay. All right. And we can print out the size to confirm that the size is now 6. Let's run that. Okay, so we get size of 6. Now let's say I just wanted to print out the keys. So let's just print out the keys. So I can do my System.out.println. We'll do my ski areas dot key set. Okay, now if I run this, we get Breckenridge, Beaver Creek, Keystone, Vale, Aspen, and Killington without the states that were the values. Let's print out only the values. So we'll do System.out.println. We'll do my ski areas dot values. And now we're going to see just the values. So we see Colorado, 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 etc., Vermont. Okay. All right. And we can clear the hash map. So let's clear the hash map. So what we can do is we can do my ski areas.clear. And now to confirm that that's clear, let's print out my ski areas. And we've got just an empty hash map here. Okay. Now I want to comment this stuff out because I want to not clear it. I want to iterate through it. So to do that, I just highlighted it and did Control /, which is a shortcut in many text editors to comment code out, including IntelliJ. All right, so let's iterate through the keys and print them out. So to do that, I can do for string, because they're strings here. So ski, I'm going to call it ski area because the keys are the ski area. And I'm going to do a colon and then my ski areas dot key set. And I'm going to do my curly braces here and do, although I probably could get away with just without them because it's one line, I'm going to do ski area. Okay. And so if I run this, see, it's going ahead, it's parsing, and we get each individual ski area down here. So Breckenridge, Beaver Creek, Keystone, Vale, Aspen, and Killington. Okay, if I want to iterate through the values and print them out, I can do that as well. So I can say for string state my ski areas dot values. I'll print out the state. Okay. And if I run that, I get Colorado, 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 Vermont. So that's what I wanted to show you with hash maps. Next thing I want to talk about is hash sets. Okay, so what did I call that file? I called that file hash set package. So let's create another file. We'll call it hash set package. So new Java class hash set package. All right, create my main. And then I want to import a little bit of code here. I'm actually going to show you the hash set and also the iterator. So I'm going to import java.util. So I'll import two classes here. One is hash set, and I'm also going to import java.util.iterator, okay, because I'm going to use that as well. Okay, so a hash set can only have one. Every item has to be unique, so you can't have duplicate items. So let's create some names here. And first off, let's create a hash set. Again, this is going to be type string. We'll do names, set it equal to a new hash set, again, of type string. Okay. And I'm going to add some names. So I'm going to do names.add Tim. And let's just duplicate this line a few times. Whoops, I forgot my semicolon. All right, and we'll do Sean, Sarah, Joe. Let's duplicate it a few more times. Aaron, and Billy. I don't know. And I'll try and include Tim again. And I'm going to make a note here, a comment. This is a duplicate. Sets only have one unique, or only have unique items. So now let's go and print out this name set. Okay, so if I print this out, notice we get Aaron, Joe, Billy, Sarah, Sean, and Tim, but not Tim twice. We only get Tim once because, again, we can only have unique items. All right. Okay, so now let's talk about some methods with sets. So some methods. All right. So we can do contains to see if an item is in there. So let's do Sarah. I'm going to duplicate the line with Control D. We'll also do Billy. And not Billy, because we have Billy. Let's do Johnny. All right. Now this should output true. And since we don't have Johnny, this should output false. So let's run that to confirm. And we get true and false. Okay, we can also clear. So we can do names.clear. And then let's now print out the names just to confirm that that's cleared out. And we get this empty set here, right? Okay. I'm going to comment this stuff out because I want to iterate through some stuff here. All right, so we're going to create an iterator. So I'm going to say iterator. It's going to be of type string. And I'm going to say my it. And it's going to be names.iterator. Okay. And so that's how we create an iterator. Now we can iterate through. We can say while my it dot has next. What we're going to do is we're going to print out my it dot next. Okay. So let's run this. And we get our names list. So we get, every name in the set. Now, we can also use a for each loop. So to iterate through, so we could say something like for string name colon names. So for name and names. It's a way you kind of do it in Python. Do System.out.println name. Okay. Now let's run this. And we get it iterating through as well that way. Okay, so that was a hash set. I'm trying to look, see what we should do next. I think we'll do object-oriented stuff. That's what I called it. Let's start doing some object-oriented stuff. Okay. So in my source file, I'm going to create a file called object-oriented stuff. New Java class. It's going to be good with the naming here. Object-oriented stuff. Okay. And let's close this out. And we're going to create our main method here. But then we want to create a class, and I'm going to do this in another file. So I'm going to open up this file here, or the file project menu, and I'm going to create a Java class, and we'll call it teacher. Okay, and let's take a look at that file. So now teacher is going to be a little different. Okay, so we're going to have not a main for this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with 3 variables. I'm going to have string. I'm going to call it t name for teacher name. I'm just initializing these. I'm going to say int t age double t GPA, because apparently teachers can have GPAs too. At least that's what I was thinking when I made my GitHub repo last night. Anyway, so I'm going to do public teacher, and I'm going to have a string variable called full name, an int called age, and a double called GPA. Okay, now what I can do here is I can say t name equals full name, t age equals age, and t GPA equals GPA. Okay. All right. So that's that teacher class file I created. Now let's use it in my object-oriented stuff file. All right. So we'll go back to my object-oriented stuff. Bear with me one sec. Taking a look at my notes. Okay. So let's create a new instance of the class. So we'll say teacher Tim equals new teacher. And I'm going to give this object a name. So it's going to be Timothy Unkert. It's going to be the name. We'll put age is 46 and GPA is 4.0. And now what we'll do is use the class and print attributes. So I'm going to do System.out.println. We'll do the object dot. Now we can access these things. So we'll do the object.tname. Let's duplicate this. And let's do t age here. And let's do t GPA here. So it's going to print out each of those. All right. So let's run this. And we get Timothy Unkert 46 4.0. So we're pulling in from that other file that has a Java class. Okay. We're also going to create a student class. So I'm going to create another file that we're going to use within this file called student. So let's do that. Let's go over here. New file, student, maybe, no, yes, no. Let's try that again. New, there we go. New file, we'll call it student. Close this out. And within student, it's going to look a little different. So we're going to talk about inheritance. So I'm going to say public class student extends teacher. Okay, and you know, it's giving me a little bit of a warning. What's the warning here? There's no default constructor available in teacher. Class student is never used. And we'll create a constructor matching the super. So we can do that. Alt Shift Enter. And it creates this code for us, public student, string full name, int age, double GPA. So this matches our teacher. All right. We're also going to create a private integer called ID. Okay. So this public student extends teacher. Just to make a comment here, this is the idea of inheritance. So we're inheriting from the teacher function. This private int ID, we're encapsulating. So these are some of the words you might hear. Encapsulating this ID here. Okay. And I'm also going to create a setter. So you hear getters and setters. I'm going to create a setter. So public void set ID int. I'm going to call this new ID. And I can use this keyword this dot ID. So see that these are getting highlighted. This dot ID equals new ID. So I can set the ID outside of this class, but I can't really access ID from outside this class because I'm using this private here. I can also include a getter. So I'll do a getter here. And I'm going to say public int get ID. And all I'm going to do is return the ID. And I'll talk about the combination of these two and whether you want to use one or the other. Got to put a semicolon here. And okay, cool. All right, so now I want to go back to this object-oriented stuff file and get that back. Hold on one sec. Object-oriented stuff. Okay, so now let's create a student. All right, so I'm going to say student Joe equals new student. And his name's going to be Joe. That's his full name. He's 47, and he only has a 2.0. Poor Joe. And what we're going to do is we're going to set Joe's ID. So we can do Joe dot, and we see we have set ID. We'll set it to 1. And now what we can do is we can print that out. We can say print it out by Joe dot get ID. Okay. All right. So let's now run this. All right. So we get Joe's ID of 1. Okay. What we can't do, because we set ID to private, we cannot do Joe dot ID. Okay. Equals 2 or something like that. We can't do that. We also can't print Joe.id. We can't access it directly. Okay, so what's this advantage? Well, it's better security. It's better processes to set stuff like this. If we use just a getter, you can't change the ID, so it's read-only. If we use just a setter, it's basically write-only. Okay, so that's a little bit about getters and setters. Let's see. Next up, I want to talk about polymorphism. Okay, so all right. So what I'm going to do is create a new file, and this is going to be brief. for talking about this, but we'll have a new Java class. Let's call it polymorphism. And let's close this out. And we'll create our main method here. And what I'm going to do is create two other classes. So I'm going to go here and let's create a dog class. So we're going to call this class dog. And let's do, come on. Hold on one sec. My internet has decided to. I'm going to pause the video. My internet is deciding to stop at this point. How's it going? Kitty. Hi. Hi, buddy. You sleepy? Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right. So where were we? We were creating a public class called dog. I'm going to create a method called public static void. Well, it's called lickface, but let's call it public. It's going to be static void. I think we have to talk about methods a little bit more. Public static void lickface. And here I'm going to just print something out. The method's just going to print something out. We'll talk about methods in a moment. The doggy licks your face, okay? And so that's our dog class. Now I'm also going to create a cat class. So let's do a new Java class. We'll call this cat, okay? And in my cat class, I'm going to say public class cat extends dog. And I'm going to create a method here, same name, public static void lickface. And I'm going to say here, the kitty licks your face. So the kitty licks your face. All right. So we can have the same method and then modify it even if we're extending it in Java. So let's go back to polymorphism now. And what we can do here is we can now basically use the cat method, which is extending, or the cat class, which is extending the dog class. So we're going to create a cat, call it Freddy. It's going to be a new instance of the class cat, and we can do Freddy dot lickface. Okay. Now, my IDE is letting me know that I could just do cat.lickface, but I can do Freddy.lickface. If I run this, we forgot something in the cat class. So hold on, let's go back and fix that because we're pulling that in. So we messed up. Oh, yes. Yes, we need a open and close parentheses here. Okay, so now we can go back to polymorphism. And let's try this again. Let's run it again. And we see the kitty licks your face. Nice. Okay. Cool. So that's a little bit about polymorphism. I think, yeah, I need to talk about methods. I've somehow skipped over that. And multidimensional arrays. So we got, let's see, methods, multidimensional arrays. Cover, I'm just writing this down for myself so I don't forget. And let's see, and then we're going to be reading and writing files. And we want to talk about typecasting and nested classes. So we got a few more things to cover. So, all right, so let's go and create a file called methods. So create a new Java class. Let's call it methods. And demonstrate how you would create some methods. And after that, we've got to talk about method overloading. This internet is kicking out. Man. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to create a main class here, and I'm going to go outside of this and create some methods outside of this main. Okay, so I'm still within my class, but I'm going to create some methods. So I'm going to create a method where we square a number. So I'm going to use this public and then the static, and then I want to return an integer. So I'm going to type int, the return value. I'm going to type square, which is the name of the method. And then in parentheses, I will type the parameter that I'm passing into the method. So passing in a number, and all it's going to do to square it is return the number times itself. So num times num. Okay, so what we can do now is we can go up to my main method, and I can call the square function. So I could say something like square 3. Okay, so I'm calling it, and I'm passing in an argument of 3. So let's run this, and we'll notice that everything works. The exit code is 0, but nothing is printed out. Okay, so what I can do is print out this method. So I can print out square 3, and now it should print out 9. Okay, and we get 9. Okay, so that's, we're calling it, now we're printing it out. I'm going to go down here, and we're going to create another method. This time, we're not going to take any parameters, no arguments or parameters, but we're not going to return anything. So we're going to do public static void hello, and I just have open and close parentheses like that. And all we're going to do is just print out hello, my name is Tim. Okay, so now I can go up here and I can call it. In the previous one, we had to print out what we called, but now I'm just calling it. And if I run it, well, it's going ahead, and we see, hello, my name is Tim. So it just prints that thing out. It doesn't return anything. That's why we have the void, and that's that function. So I also want to create a function that calculates an exponent and returns an integer. So I'm going to create another method. It's going to be public static int exponent is going to be the name. And I'm going to say int base, int power. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say int I equals 0, int product equals 1. And so the I is for a while loop. And I'm going to say while I is less than power. And we'll do our curly braces. Remember, we need to increment I, so I'll do that so I don't get an infinite loop. And I'll just say product equals the product times the base. Another way I could have written this is just product star equals base. That's also a way to write it, but okay. And then at the end of this method, we'll just return the product, okay? All right, so now I will have to print this one out, print out the return from it. So I'm going to do System.out.println, and I'm going to do exponent, and let's do 2 to the third power, and we should get 8. Okay, so let's run it. And we get 8 right down here. Cool. Now we can also do something called method overloading. And I alluded to that earlier in the video. So let's go to method overloading. Okay. Method overloading, if it's going to load. There we go. All right. So let's create a new file here. Let's call it method overloading. Okay. And we'll close this one out. We'll create our main method. And below our main method, we'll create the concept of method overloading is you create two methods with the same name, but you can take in different data types and return different data types. So I'm going to have a public static. It's going to return integer. We'll call it exponent, like our previous file. We're going to take an integer that's called the base, an integer that's called the power. Those are the two arguments or two parameters that we have for our function. Again, we'll say int I equals 0, int product equals 1, and I'll say while I is less than power. Again, I'm going to increment up. One way I could do is I equals I plus 1. That's another way instead of the I plus plus. This time we'll do product star equals or asterisk equals base. So every time through, you're going to multiply the product by the base, product times the base. Okay. And we will return the product. Okay. Now, let's go down here and we'll create another method. I'm going to say public static double exponent. And I'll say double, we'll use base, and then we'll use the power as an integer. So that makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to say int I equals 0. Now, again, this I is not the same as the I above. We're also going to create one called product. That's a double. That's not the same because the scope of these is assigned only to this method, and the scope of these is to this method. Okay. It's only local to each method. So I'm going to say double product equals 1 because we're going to be multiplying by the base, which is a product, and we want to return a product or to return a double. I might not phrase that right, but anyways. So we'll say while I is less than power, we're going to do the product, do asterisk equals the base. So times equals the base, increment up with I plus plus. Okay. And we got something going on here. Did I forget to return? Yeah, I got to return the product. Okay. All right, now we need to call them, and when we call them, we should print them out. So I'm going to do a System.out.println. We'll do exponent. Now, notice we can choose between the two. Which one do I want? I want the first one. So we've done method overloading. Similar to what we did with the previous method earlier in the video. I alluded to this. I forget what it was, but we did this earlier on. And we're also going to do System.out.println. We'll do exponent. We'll choose the double base. So I'm going to do 2.2. Now, if I just type 2.2, it would pick the one with the double. And we'll run it. And let's see what we get. And okay, so we get 2 to the third power is 8. 2.2 to the fifth power is 51.536, etc. Okay. All right, so that's method overloading. So we talked about methods. We talked about method overloading. I don't know if I included it in the GitHub repo, but I wanted to talk about method recursion. Did I create any file for that here? I don't know if I did, but let's just do it. So let's create a file. This might not be in the GitHub repo, but I'm going to call it method recursion. So just to demonstrate recursive methods here, let's create our main. Let me clear this sidebar out. Okay, so we're going to go outside of here. Let me do a public static int. Let's call it factorial. And we'll take in an integer called num. I'm going to say if num double equals 1, I'm just going to return the num. And remember, because I only have one line after the if, I can do it that way without the curly braces. And otherwise, I'm going to say return the num times this factorial function. So it's calling itself with the num, and we're going to take 1 off. Okay, and that should work. And so let's now print out the factorial function with an integer 5, which should give me 120. Let's run this. So I get 120. Okay, so what is going on here? Well, all right, so we pass 5 into the function. 5 does not equal 1, so we go down here. We return 5 times the factorial of 4, and we go now 4. 4 does not equal 1. We do 4 times factorial of 3. All the way till we get to 1, we just return. We're returning 1 at the last part. So we really get what we get. Let me make a comment here. Is we're going to get, we pass in 5, we get 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is the factorial of 5. So that's an example of having a function call itself, which is called recursion. Okay, so we covered that. Let's cover multi-dimensional arrays. All right, so let's do multi-dimensional arrays. So I'm going to create a source file here, or file in the source file. We'll call it multi-dimensional arrays. Okay, get rid of the sidebar. Let's have our main here. And we'll create a multi-dimensional array. And let's create a type string. So I can do string. And I'm going to do 2 open and close square brackets. I'm going to give it an identifier of my names. And we're going to set it to curly braces. And I'm going to format it like this. And then we're going to have 2 arrays in. So we're going to have a first array of names. So Tim, Sarah, and Sean. After this first array, we're going to have a comma. So everyone except the last array needs a comma. And we're going to do then Joe and just Aaron. Okay, there's lots of different ways you can do this, but this is just a little demonstration. I'm going to put a semicolon here at the end of this. So I need that. And let's say I wanted to access Sean. So I wanted to print Sean. So I would do System.out.println, and then my names, and then we start with index 0 because Sean is in the first array. Remember, we're 0 based. And then we have index 0, 1, 2. Okay, so that would print Sean. Now let's say I wanted to print Joe. So I'm going to do my System.out.println. I'll do my names. He is in the second array, so we're actually using index 1 here. So I'm going to do 1, and he's the first item in at index 1. So it's actually in this array, he's at index 0. So we do 0. And so we should print out Sean and Joe. Let's run it. Okay, so we get Sean and Joe. So that was a little bit about multi-dimensional arrays. Let's now talk about typecasting. And I'm going to create a file. It's going to be a new Java class. We'll call it typecasting.java. Okay, let's close out the side here. let's create a main method, and let's go here to typecasting. Okay, so let's declare and initialize some variables. We'll declare and initialize variables. So I'm going to do string my name, set that equal to Timothy Unkert. We're going to do int my age, set that equal to 46. And let's print out both. Okay. Now, in this case, let's print both out. We can get away without the typecasting. So my name is, and we'll do my name plus, and I am my age. We'll do years old. I have the font really jacked up. So in this case, we can get away passing an integer in, and it's going to know that it wants to convert it to a string. So in other languages, we could run into an issue with that, but in this case, we can do it. So you see, there's no errors. It says, my name is Timothy Unkert, and I'm 46 years old. We could also do integer.toString, but we don't need to, okay? But we can, if we want to change a double into an integer, so let's say we have a double called pi, and that's 3.1415, and we want pi as an integer. Let's create an integer. We'll call it pi int, and the way we typecast is we do in parentheses the type we want, and then the variable that we want typecasted, so pi, and this is going to chop off the decimal portion. Okay, and what we can do is now just print out pi int, and we should get 3. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, so we get 3. All right. Okay. So that was typecasting. Let's talk about nested classes. So we're going to do a new Java class. I'm going to call this nested classes here, and go up to the source here, or my GitHub repo. And all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my main. But inside this class, I'm going to create another class. I'm going to say public static. You can do this. This is a demonstration. Public static class teacher. And I'm just going to have a string tname and an int age. And then I'm going to do a little constructor here. So public teacher. And we'll do string name int age. And we'll say this dot tname equals name, and this dot age equals age. Now, notice we kept these two the same. These two are different. Doesn't really matter. So what I can do to get the teacher class is I can do the overall class, so nested classes dot, and then I can do teacher Tim equals new teacher, and we'll do Timothy Unkert and 46. Okay, and what we can do is now do System.out.println tim.tname plus is plus, and we could do this integer to string I was talking about in the previous video, integer to string Tim.age plus years old. Okay. What warning are we getting? Unnecessary integer string call. Okay, let's try this. So we don't necessarily need that, but we could do it. And we get Timothy Unkert is 46 years old. So we're using the nested class there. Okay. Since nested classes, now let's talk about writing to files. All right, so let's go here. Let's create another source file. It's going to be a Java class. I'm going to call this write. Let's call it write to file.java. Oh, I actually called it write files. So let me bring this up and we'll refactor. Okay, so we'll go here, refactor, rename it, and I'll name it what I called it in the GitHub repo. So write files. Let's do our refactor. Okay. All right, let's create our main method. And we're going to go up here, and I need to bring in something called, so I'm going to import java.io.file writer. So this one. Okay. Now I'm going to actually import something else in a moment. But we're going to create a new instance of the file writer class. So I'm going to say file writer. My fizzbuzz file. Oh no, not again. But we're going to write fizzbuzz to a file. So it's going to be new file writer, and we'll write to a file. We got to put the file name here. So fizzbuzz.txt. So I got to put the file name and the file extension. Now you'll see it's giving me a warning here. So if I hover over this, it says unhandled exception, java.io exception, and we can do Alt-Shift-Enter to add the exception to the method signature. So I'm going to do that, Alt-Shift-Enter. And we'll see here, we see public static void main throws IO exception, and it added these two. Now, I don't need this one. I think I just added that one when I accidentally typed file. Okay, so that's a nice little IntelliJ trick there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to go through fizzbuzz. So we're going to do a for loop. So let's say for int I equals 1, I is less than 101, and we'll increment I each time through the loop. We're going to say if I modulo 3, that equals 0, and I modulo 5 equals 0. What we're going to do is we are going to take this my fizzbuzz file, we'll do dot write, and we'll write, pop up, get out of my way. We'll do fizzbuzz, and I'm going to do a new line character, okay, because we need to put that in. Otherwise, it's going to be all jumbled together. And we'll say else if I modulo 3, if that equals 0, so it's divisible by 3, we'll take the file and we'll write fizz, and then we'll also say else if I modulo 5, if that equals 0, we'll write buzz, and then we'll finally we'll do my fizzbuzz file dot write I, and then I'm also going to do my fizzbuzz file dot write. There's a couple different ways I could do this, but I'm going to do the new line character this way. So just write a new line character. Okay, so it looks like we're good. We're getting some kind of warning here. Oh, we don't have a try. So yeah, I think we have to cover exceptions as well. So let me cover exceptions in a moment. But anyway, so let's run this. And we see we finished with exit code 0. Now, it seems like nothing outputted, but if we go down here, we see we got this fizzbuzz.txt, and if we click on it, what happened? Oh, we forgot one thing. We forgot to close the file. So we got to have myfizzbuzzfile.close. So we want to go outside the for loop here, and we want to do myfizzbuzzfile.close. Don't need a 0 there. And now let's rerun this. Okay, so process finished, no problems. Let's open up the side here and let's check out FizzBuzz. Okay, so now we get this weird output. Okay, so in this case, we've got to go back and do something. This is when it matters with the writing to a different file, because Java is smart enough, but this other file is like, what are you doing here? So we got to do integer to string, and then we'll pass in I here. Okay, now we'll run it again. It's going ahead and no problems, finished with exit code 0. So let's go here. Now we've got our integers. We needed to change them to strings to write FizzBuzz to our different file. Cool. All right. Let's create another file. And what did I call it in the repo? I called it readfiles.java. So let's create a new Java class. We'll call it read files. And we'll close out the side here. And this one we're going to actually import the file package that we didn't need in the previous one. So I'm going to import java.io.file, and I'm going to import java.io. No, let's do java.util.scanner. And there's another one, but I'm just going to let IntelliJ import that for me because I'm feeling lazy. So I'm going to say file, and we'll say my FizzBuzz file. I'm just going to do an abbreviation equals new file. It's got to be within here in this folder in the output. So it's going to be fizzbuzz.txt. Again, we should have a try catch here, but I'm just showing you how we can read. So we're going to do scanner read FizzBuzz file. We're going to create a scanner object equals a new scanner, and we're going to pass in my FizzBuzz file. That's what we're going to be scanning, not system.in. Now you'll see that it's giving me the red, and it says, well, I can add the method signature. So it added this and it added this. That's why I was feeling lazy, because I didn't want to type it out. But, okay, so now what we can do is we can go through here and we can say, while read FBF file, FizzBuzz file, dot has next line. What we're going to do is we're going to create a string called current line. You can name it what you want. And I'm going to say that equals read FizzBuzz file dot next line. And now what I'm going to do is to System.out.println will print out the current line. Okay. And so let's just run it. And we get our FizzBuzz here. Cool. All right. So I want to make another comment here, and it's just to say if I wanted to delete a file, I could use FBF, the name of the file. So my FBF file.delete. Okay. So I could use that to delete it if I wanted to get rid of it afterwards. Okay. Now I want to talk about exceptions, which we didn't include. So let's create a new Java class. I'm going to call this exceptions. And I'm going to close that out. We'll create our main method. I'm going to import java.util.scanner just to show you something. And I'm going to create a new instance of the scanner class. I'm going to say scanner scan. I'm going to call it scan. It is a new scanner. And we're going to do system.in. And then I'm going to declare an integer called myint. And then I'm going to print instructions to enter an integer. Okay, so now we're going to do a try catch, and then we'll do a try catch finally. So I'm going to say try myint equals scan.nextInt. And what we'll do is we'll print the integer you entered was my int, and that with a period. And then we'll do a catch, and we can have in parentheses exception. We'll call it E. And what we can do is we could print out E if we wanted, but I'm going to just do a System.out.println. I'm going to say I said enter an integer, bro. And let's run this, and let's first do something wrong. So go ahead and run it. And it says enter an integer. I'm going to type 5. Obviously, this is not going to work. And it says, I said enter an integer, bro. Now, if I run it the right way, and actually type the number 5, it says the integer you entered was 5. Now, we can also have a finally, which will run no matter what. So we'll do a finally. And I'm going to say finally something like, well, cool, bro. I don't know if I need that many comments. But anyways, probably not. Hashtag bad grammar. Anyways, so let's go enter an integer. So we're going to do banana. I said enter an integer, bro. Well, cool, bro. And then what am I doing? Let's run it again. Enter an integer. I'm going to enter in 12. And it says the integer you entered was 12. Well, cool, bro. So the finally will run whether we have the try or the catch run. Okay. So let me look through my GitHub repo quickly. We did arithmetic, conditional state package dog, escape characters, factorial, for loops. Oh yeah, factorial, we did that. That was a recursion. Polymorphism, printing, string methods, student switch, teacher, ternary math class, typecasting, user input, variable data types, while loops, and writing files. So we've done everything in the GitHub repo. So I'm going to conclude this video, and I think that's going to give you a good start as a beginner into the world of Java. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, could you please give it a like, as it will help get out to more people. I also want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.